Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rachah Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Societies All Collapse for the Same Reason, or for the same reasons. And pretty much this is a lesson dealing with the decline and fall of this American empire, Babylon the Great. And of course, prophecy plays a major role in that, and we see all of the signs playing out how this system is collapsing, on all levels, socially, militarily, economically, which are some of the strongholds to keep a society afloat. Now, I have a couple of articles I want to go into, and a couple of precepts and whatever else comes up. If brothers put comments in the comment board, scriptures, that go with the lesson. Lord's will, I'll pick and choose from some of them as the Spirit allows. Hopefully this will be an edifying lesson. I was looking for a lesson, and this article had popped up that I'm about to share with you. And I found a couple of other articles that went good with it, and I was searching for a title which eventually came to me. As you see, Societies All Collapse for the Same Reasons. And then a few precepts came to mind, and I just pulled them up. And like I said, we'll go from there. So as you see here, this is Broken Society. This is placed around Oklahoma City. This is the U.S., so-called U.S. I guess what you would say, the Midwest. You have New Mexico there, and so on and so forth. Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's heavy, Tulsa. Now, I typed in the decline of society, and this came up. Societal collapse, also known as civilization collapse or civilizational collapse, is the fall of a complex human society. And America is a complex human society, the way that it's set up, established from its beginning till now. It's made a dramatic change, and it's set up on a very complex system. The infrastructure, everything, the way it was set up and made, established, all the stores being interconnected, computers being interconnected, the supply chain. Prior to them disrupting it on purpose, they had a mechanism to where most stores didn't have to have room anymore for inventory, because the supply chain was so on point that if you needed something, you would get it within an hour, through that supply chain. So it's a very complex system that has been established. Very well thought out, the way they set it up. So it says, is the fall of a complex human society characterized by the loss of cultural identity and of socio-economic complexity, the downfall of governments, and the rise of violence. See? So you have a loss of cultural identity, because this place, so-called, even though it's a piece of dung place, but it's supposed to have been established upon Christian values, but you don't see that. The identity of it is pretty much gone, because they have all nations here worshiping all kind of BS. So the America of today does not really reflect the America of yesterday, so to speak. It says, and of socio-economic complexity, right? because you have social class, you have, the upper class, the middle class, the poor, and now they're merging it into two, just the super rich and the super poor. And that's part of the decline of a society, because of the middle class would be considered like the backbone of a society, because they're the ones that that pretty much hold it together, even though the poor are really the ones that are holding it together. But according to stats, the middle class is what really holds a society together. And once the middle class is gone, everything falls apart. It says the downfall of government, which we see happening, whether it's created or not, and the rise of violence, which we're seeing happening right now. And that violence is coming by way of a lot of criminal activity happening. Why? Because of necessity. They say necessity is the mother of all inventions. Well, necessity is also the mother of all violence and crime, depending on how desperate the individual may be. Right. So the first article that I have, which I put these articles in the description box for those that want to read them. It says, we're scraping the barrel. We're scraping the barrel. Desperate police departments luring new cops with huge signing bonuses. This is dated October 2nd, 2022, the year of our Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai turning up, which this was yesterday. I'm going to just read this quick precept the brother put up. It's a good precept. Job 20:19, because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, because he has violently taken away an house which he builded not. Right, and this is what the so-called elite are doing. And this is one of their biggest crimes, because the poor that they're oppressing are, for the most part, Israelites. Then it goes on to say, surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly, right? Because the belly is a representation of the mind. And their whole thing is to feel quietness in their mind based off of this new system that they're putting in place, their agenda, the New World Order. It says, he shall not save of that which he desired, right? Because their desire is what? To have the whole world in their hand, the whole world in the palm of their hand, like the song goes. So it goes on to say, as law enforcement agencies across the country suffer from record waves of resignations and retirements in the wake of the left's defund movement, right? Defund the police, they're being held accountable and hit with all kind of penalties, because of them doing their job. Police departments have resorted to showering new hires in cash, doling out tens of thousands of dollars in signing bonuses to attract recruits. It says Redding, California Police Chief Bill Schuler was having trouble attracting new cops last year after raising signing bonuses from $5,000 to $7,500. So this year, he raised the offer to $40,000, more than half of a year's starting salary at the agency, the Wall Street Journal reports. The outsized bonus was unnecessary, he said, to recruit experienced officers in the line of work that has lost its popularity, see, because no one wants to be a police officer anymore. They got a real bad rap because of all of the corruption, police brutality, and all of these things that are happening to where a police officer can't even do his job anymore. You have those that are sincere, that do their job correctly, but they're getting penalized because everything is police brutality. Oh, you put the cuffs on them, that's police brutality, After nationwide protests over the 2020 murder of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer, Mr. Schuler said the negative attention brought to law enforcement really started people thinking that maybe this isn't the job for me. So what's happening? Police officers are declining, in all states, and the people that used to want to become police officers to make a change say, well, becoming a police officer doesn't really make a change, so why even bother? Law enforcement agencies across the U.S. have said they are facing staffing shortages, which means what? Staffing shortages means longer hours for those police officers. And when you're on salary, you don't get paid. In certain cases, you don't get paid overtime. Even though they do get paid overtime. But when you're on a salary, if you're working as a manager or assistant manager and you're on salary, it doesn't matter if you work 30 hours or 60 hours, you still get paid the same. But in the case of these police officers, they do get overtime, but overtime, even though they're getting the money, they're not getting the rest that they need. As resignations and retirements rise, the tight labor market is compounding what police chief describes as waning interest from job seekers amid heightened scrutiny of officers' actions. A less favorable view of the profession by some Americans and a surge in violent crimes. Why? Because you don't have the manpower out there, and they don't have the funds to pay these officers to go out there, and by them having to raise, the hiring bonuses, that means that there's less money for them to spend on certain crimes. That's why you see situations like certain particular crimes are not being they're not going after these individuals for a period of a couple of days or something like that. Why? Because of the shortage of money. And that's another part of the collapse of society. Less police officers, less military men, less money equals less interest in these particular jobs. And putting your life on the line is not worth it because, the majority of the population is against you. It says Seattle, which has seen more than 460 officers depart over the past 2.5 years, approved $30,000 bonuses for lateral hires and $7,500 for new recruits, while the city of Ithaca, New York, is now offering $20,000 for hires from other agencies. So they're so desperate, they're looking to other agencies to bring in officers. You're hard-pressed to think of a time when police departments had to incentivize hiring with bonuses and pay officers to stay on the force, said Chuck Wexler, the executive director of the Police Executive Research Forum, adding, "I haven't seen that ever." And it goes on and on and on. Let's read a little bit more. In 2021, the average salary for a police officer was $70,740 versus $58,620 for all occupations, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This comes after the number of cops dropped nationally in 2020 after rising over the previous decade. Other agencies have been dropping their standards to fill vacancies, such as Chicago, which dropped its college requirement for some recruits. Alameda County Sheriff's Department spokesman Sergeant Ray Kelly said the agencies are hiring officers who washed out during their probationary periods in other departments. And it goes on, a little bit more there. You could read the rest of that. So this is dealing with the police officers, which are the ones that are supposed to keep the peace, make sure that, crimes are down to a minimal because of their presence. But crimes are actually rising because of less police presence and less, what's the word I'm looking for? Convictions. So the next one is every branch of the military is struggling to make its 2022 recruiting goals, officials say. And this is another major decline or evidence of societal decline, which is the number of military men waning, going down, which means that less military men means less protection. So if you are spread too thin and you don't have the manpower, certain areas that you have can come and be taken over by others. Just keep that in mind. With a record low number of Americans eligible to serve and few of those willing to do it, this is the year we question the sustainability of all volunteer force, said an expert. We scroll down here. Every branch of the U.S. military is struggling to meet its fiscal year 2022 recruiting goals, says multiple U.S. military and defense officials. And numbers obtained by NBC News show both a record low percentage of young Americans eligible to serve and even tinier fraction willing to consider it. The official said the Pentagon's top leaders are now scrambling for ways to find new recruits to fill out the ranks of all the volunteer force. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks consider the shortfall a serious issue, said the officials, and have been meeting on it frequently with other leaders. This is the start of a long drought for military recruiting, said retired Lieutenant General Thomas Spohr of the Heritage Foundation, a think tank. He said the military has not had such a hard time signing recruits since 1973, which was during the Vietnam era. The year the U.S. left Vietnam and the draft officially ended. Yeah, that's when the troops came home. Spohr said that he does not believe a revival of the draft is imminent, but 2022 is a year we question the sustainability of the all-volunteer force. Yeah, and eventually they will have to have a draft, because if people are not joining, that means they're not going to have bodies to hit the flow. Inside joke. So they're going to have, a draft to get the necessary bodies to hit the necessary floors. Let me read a couple of these precepts brothers put up. This is the book of Jeremiah 51 and 30. It says, the mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. Right, they don't want to fight anymore. They've heard the horror stories. And when you go back to Vietnam, when the veterans started coming home, people noticed that these men were what? Homeless, bugged out of their minds, out in the streets, desolate. And the scriptures say that one thing that the writer, I believe that was of Sirach, wrote, it says one thing that he hates in so many words is a man of war suffering poverty. A man of war should never suffer poverty. Any individual that went to the military and fought in any type of war should be taken care of for the rest of his life. But that's not the case in America. Vets come home, they're either in the VA hospitals, on drugs, in the streets, homeless, begging, for scraps. They don't take care of theirs. So the younger generation seeing that, they're like, man, fuck that. Why should I go there? Risk my life, my limbs, my sanity to defend a country that don't give a fuck about me. It says they have remained in their holds. Their might had failed, right? And this society has been so effeminized, where you have a great number of metrosexual men out there, and you see them. See, back in the world, we didn't see that because the veil was still over our eyes. But now, when you look at these men, even the men that call themselves manly, they're all dolled up. Even if they have a beard, the beard is all, cut up, to the point where they look sweet like a muffin. Sweet, moist muffin individuals, So the masculinity of men in America has been frowned upon so much that these men are turning into women. You see? And it's terrible. The role reversal, women becoming men becoming women. It's terrible, man. It's just atrocious. It says, they became as women. Look at that. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken. One post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to another to meet another, to show the king of Babylon that his city is taken at one end, and eventually this is going to happen. You know, their whole system that they set up, this complex system, is going to fall apart, and that the passages are stopped, and the reeds they have burned with fire, and the men of war were affrighted. Yeah, because they're, you know, this is not, you know, the America it used to be, when men, you know, were strong men, you know, because hard times made strong men. You know, World War I, World War II, the men back then, you know, and even during the Vietnam conflicts and, you know, and all of that, men were stronger mentally, physically. Today, this society has bred weak ass men. It says, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, the power of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. Right. And America is the daughter of Babylon, Babylon the Great. And she is like a threshing floor. A threshing floor was used to thresh wheat, or to, you know, you could have something where you crush grapes. And the thing about it was, once the floor was filled to its capacity, that's when the threshing would begin. And it's time. It is time to thresh her. See? See? Yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come. Right. And we're right at the door for the time of her harvest to come. Let's see. The brother put 2 Ezra 15:11. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. Right. Because all of the land of ancient Egypt was not destroyed. It says, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. Right. Because it's inevitable, but that America, Babylon the Great, falls. You know, the end is come. The very end of this place is come. This is the scripture I had quoted earlier through the Spirit. Ecclesiastes 26:28. There be two things that grieve my heart, and the third maketh me angry. A man of war that suffereth poverty. Yeah. And men of understanding that are set by. Why? Because a man of understanding is also supposed to be taken care of. But in this society, a true man of understanding is always at the bottom. You know, they don't get their just due. And one that returneth from righteousness to sin, the Lord prepareth such a one for the sword. That's right. Let's see. What else we got? Let me see. All right. So, let's go back here. Yeah, that scripture here in Revelation 18:2, this is dealing with the destruction of America. You know, and this is after the destruction. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Yeah, this ain't talking about homosexuals and, you know, alphabet people, you know, in America. This is talking about after the destruction, these unclean birds and animals and reptiles will be living here in America. Beautiful. Proverbs 28:15. As a roaring lion and a raging bear, so is a wicked ruler over the poor people. And we're going to see that in this lesson, Lord's will. Isaiah 24:10. The city of confusion is broken down, every house is shut up, and no man may come in. Right. Because this place is going to be totally destroyed. All right, so you get the idea here, you know, with the police having shortages and every branch of the military having shortages. This brings problems. Like I said, these are in the description box in case you want to read it. Now, the main article I have here from flamingnet.com is the decline of the Roman army and society. Causes for the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. We're going to read a little bit of this. A decline of two elements of the Western Roman Empire, The Roman army and Roman society, because those are the two strongholds, of and the backbone of a society is their military for protection and the people. Because if the people don't believe in the society, the people will not uphold the society. As you see in America, the decline of people willing to serve because of the corruption. It says weakened. The Roman army and the Roman society weakened the empire to the point where external attacks, which had previously been repelled, successfully overran the empire. The Roman army and society declined in the time from 180 AD to the overthrow of Augustus in 476 AD. All right, we're just going to jump around. The attacks on the Roman Empire during these earlier times before the decline were repelled because the empire had a powerful army. All right, keep that in mind. Now, as we read down through here, it tells you about the struggles between the Roman people, the bringing in of German people, and the back and forth fighting between the German people and the Roman people, which led to divisions. And what did Yahushua say? The kingdom divided amongst itself will fall. Also, the availability of quality soldiers was declining because you had two forms or two types of military men. You had pretty much the elite forces, which would fight, which would be sent all over the place, and then you had the ones that are underneath them that really would deal with mostly, domestic affairs. Think they would stay within the reaches. They wouldn't be sent to the hottest parts of the battle because you had experienced, more elite soldiers. But then when the elite soldiers started lacking, they had to send the lesser ones out there, which means that they didn't have the protection that they had before, because now 100 elite men brought down to 50 elite men and 50 not so elite men. The other 50 had to carry the weight of, two men. So eventually that started dwindling. So it says the field force, which was the elite, had to take second-rate soldiers from the frontier force, right? Thus lowering the quality of the army. The waning quality of the Roman army was not its only concern. There were also not a sufficient number of new soldiers being drafted. In what? In the ancient Roman Empire. This is what caused what? The decline of the Roman army and society. So the same thing that we're reading in these articles with the police, which the Roman soldiers doubled down as police and tripled down. They tripled down as police, soldiers, builders, because the Roman soldier had to do everything. They had to protect, they had to fight, they had to build. They were everything, unlike today. All right? So it goes on to say, when we jump down right here, the poor were unfairly taxed by the emperors to support the army and the empire. Almost all the population of the empire, at least some 90%, lived by farming on little more than a subsistence level, meaning they were barely surviving. And this is the sentiment that's going on now in America. People are barely surviving, barely hanging on. It says, though its tax burden may have been slightly less than 90%, the poor were thus driven lower into poverty, and this had repercussions throughout the Western Roman society. Why? Because these people have to do what? Now they're desperate. So you had to, leave doing whatever you were doing and join raiders. Not of the Lost Ark, but raiders, to go on missions, on criminal missions, so that you can survive. And this is what's happening right now. You're having people, resorting to violence and robbing people and taking people's stuff and cutting people's catalytic converters out of their cars to survive. And it's going to get worse. Most had been farmers of small plots of land, but once the powerful landowners bought them up, they had few choices. They could continue to live on the farms as little more than slaves, which is the same thing here in America, or work for the landowners in feudal arrangements, which the word feudal means fees. And Esau did that to Jake. Judah was so-called emancipated, so-called freed, which that was a joke. But what happened? When they became sharecroppers, Esau would charge them for everything. Room and board, food, the use of the tools, whatever they use, to the point where they were pretty much working for free. Which was no different than slavery. So how free were the slaves? You were still indebted to this goddamn devil. Either way, losing most of their freedoms. Same thing happening today. Another option they had was to go into the cities and try to find work there. Naturally, this lowly position in society disheartened the poor. Therefore, they also did not join the army as they used to. So you see what's going on here? Do you see what's going on here? This is the same parallels that are happening from ancient Rome to America today. The situation of the poor also disrupted the peace as they joined guerrilla groups and traveled as gangs of robbers and bandits. Why? Because they would fare better doing this than working for themselves, because there was nothing for them to do. Here we go. The brother KDC put this up. It says, what is disband an army? To dismiss a military force from service, verb intransitive, to cease to exist or function as an organization scattered, dispersed. And that's what's happening to America. And this is what happened to ancient Rome. And this is what happened to other societies. But the best example we have is the ancient Roman Empire, which America is nothing more than a revival of the ancient Roman Empire. The emperors forced the poor into a position where it was nearly impossible to make a meager living, pushing them into abject poverty and criminal acts, making them disconcerted with the empire. The emperors of the Western Roman Empire also ruined the middle class. Is that not what they're doing right now? Ruining the middle class? Which had always been the backbone of the Roman Empire. By taking tax revenues from the cities where most of the middle class resided and worked. Constantine the Great sapped most of the wealth out of the cities and therefore affected the middle class, taking jobs away from them. The middle class, lacking work, was forced to take on jobs that the aristocrats did not want to do, which was what? Meager jobs, lesser jobs, such as counselors and tax collectors. They were given personal liability for their whole region's tax deficit, which they were often quite unable to make good. Thus, the people of the middle class were driven deeper into poverty. And we're seeing that right now. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. The brother I'm the one I made. Yeah, I forgot about that. Joe Biden recently stated soldiers need to consider applying for welfare services during these trying times. Why? Because, Mr. Gilmore can't afford to give you room and board anymore. So it says, also, these new jobs made them hated by those below them in the social order. And they were made to stay at these posts under the threat of law. Therefore, a vital part of any society, the middle class, was alienated and destroyed, further damaging the Western Roman Empire. Now, when we jump down to the bottom, because this here goes into the wealth of the aristocrats, and they kept accumulating wealth, which we see that happening right now. You know, the ones that are benefiting off of this whole situation, you know, they're getting richer and richer, and everybody else is getting more poor. The last paragraph here is the decline and eventual collapse of the Western Roman Empire was due to problems in two elements of the empire: the army and society. Those are the backbones. The troubles in the Roman army were due to civil wars, which is wars among themselves, and a decrease of the quality and quantity of soldiers protecting the empire. What did we read here? It says, every branch of the military is struggling to make it its 2022 recruiting goals, officials say. So let me read a couple of these scriptures that the brother put up. Proverbs 12:10, a righteous man regardeth the life of his beast, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. Yeah, because they don't give a shit about the people. Proverbs 12:15, the thought of the righteous are right, but the counsels of the wicked are deceit. Yeah, they promise you the world and they give you shit. The troubles in the Roman army were due to civil wars and the decrease of the quality and quantity of soldiers protecting the empire. There were also problems in the poor, middle, and upper classes, combined with racial and religious tensions among the people, which together contributed to a decline in society. And we see that happening again today. A weakened army and a problematic society caused a decline in the Western Roman Empire, which opened the doors to barbarian invasions that eventually led to the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD. All right. Now, let's go to Isaiah 19:14. It says, the Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. And this is what's going on. There's a perverse spirit mingled in the midst thereof. It's perverse as far as what? You know, depravity, because you got something called MAPS, minor attracted persons, because you can't call them PDOs, you know, because if you call them the P word, you know, you get clipped. And they have caused Egypt to err or commit errors in every work thereof, right? Military, police, so on and so forth. As a drunken man staggereth in his vomit, because they're just all fucked up. Let me read this precept here. Isaiah 32:6, for the vile person, which is Esau, will speak villainy, and his heart will work iniquity, right? They'll tell you one thing, but they'll do something totally different. As it says, to practice hypocrisy. See? Because they'll say one thing, but they'll do something totally different. And to utter error against the Lord, to make empty the soul of the, where we at? Soul of the hungry, and he will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail. That's exactly what they're doing. You know? And then it goes on to say, the instruments also of the churl are evil. He devises wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words, even when the needy speaketh right. Yeah, because the whole intention is to keep the poor and even poorer, and to put the middle class into the bracket of extreme poverty. Habakkuk 1:4, therefore the law is slacked, and judgment doth never go forth, for the wicked doth compass about the righteous, therefore wrong judgment proceedeth. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, you know what? I have to read these real quick. Proverbs 28:8, he that by usury and unjust gain increases his substance, he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. That's right. Ecclesiastes 28:13, curse the whisperer and the double tongue, for such have destroyed many that were at peace. Right, because they're saying one thing out of their mouth, but doing something totally different. A backbiting tongue have disquieted many and driven them from nation to nation. Strong cities hath it pulled down, and overthrown the houses of great men. A backbiting tongue hath cast out virtuous women, and deprived them of their labors. Whoso hearkeneth unto it shall never find rest, and never dwell quietly. Yep. So let's go from there real quick to Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Let's start at 1. Salaki. And what you have to understand is that this is all the doing, first and foremost, of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, because it's prophecy. And then you have these international bankers, the rich men. This is why it says, woe unto you, rich men, that are moving the so-called quote-unquote chess pieces on the board in their favor, but making it seem like it's for the favor of the people. That's why eventually people are getting tired of the bullshit and turning to violence, turning to crime to be able to survive. You know, this is why it says that there's going to be sedition among men and invading one another, because there's going to be a lack of bread. When people can't eat, that's the last straw. You know, it's one thing you can't do this or you can't do that. You can't buy clothing. You can't buy a new car or TV or whatever the case may be. But when you can't eat, that's when there's problems. So it says, a wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. And this government is not well ordered. The order of this government is going directly into the pockets of the international banking families. That's why you have, what is it, like, I know there's more, but I think there's like 5 major corporations out there that run all of the different corporations in the world. And number 1 on that list, I believe, is BlackRock. Then you have Vanguard, and you have some other ones that are pretty much have all these other different corporations under their umbrella. All right. And I ain't talking about, well, yeah, that is the umbrella, Rihanna's umbrella, because that's the Illuminati. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. That's why you see the things going on the way that they are. Because the people that are in power are corrupt, so the officers will be corrupt. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is corrupt, such are all they that dwell therein. And this is why you see everything leaning towards a corrupt, moral, decaying system. It says, an unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. But now we see in the decline of America, as we saw the decline of the ancient Roman Empire, militarily, financially, so on and so forth, morally, and even creatively. Because I have a book right now, I don't know, because I got it packed away, you know, that spoke about that. That was one of the things that brought the ancient Roman Empire down, which was the lack of creativity. So it goes on to say, the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable. Yeah. In the hand of the Most High is the prosperity of man, and upon the person of the scribe shall he lay his honor. Bear not hatred. That's going into something else. But pretty much, as the judge of a people is, so are his people. And this whole society is based off of perversity, if that's even a word. It's perverse, because the ones that are in power, although they appear to be noble, they appear to be, sensible people, you see the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and they appear to the public to be upstanding people of the community, so to speak. They're nothing but devious, perverse, low-life, scum-sucking, pieces of mierda, which is shit. They're profane, as the scriptures say, doing all kind of shit. So Isaiah 14:3, it says, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve. So when we're about to be delivered, there will be certain things that will be happening. That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. And that's what we're doing. We're taking up a proverb against the king of Babylon. Pretty much it's the Lord mocking these devils. And say, how have the oppressors ceased? The golden city ceased. Right, because you're on a downward spiral. You're in decline. And the world sees it. They see the chinks in the armor. And this is how the Germanic tribes were able to infiltrate and eventually take down the Roman Empire, because they started seeing the chinks in the armor, the social unrest, the infightings, the civil wars. And eventually what happened was they were overtaken. Why? Because it was time for them to fall. It said the Lord had broken the staff of the wicked. What is a staff? A staff symbolizes power. So their staff has been what? Broken, severed. And the scepter of the rulers, right? Because it's time for them to go down. The Most High sets up one and takes down another. So it's time for this empire to fall. Even the disciples asked back then, when was the end of the world? Which means the end of that age. And then Yahushua was breaking it down to them. When you see this, you see wars and rumors of wars and pestilence and, famine, so on and so forth, this, that, and the other. Then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then in the book of Luke 21, he says, when you see these things, look up, for your salvation draweth near. And we're coming to that point. And this is why it seems like we keep repeating the same thing over and over again about prophecies. But the reason why is because these prophecies have to be hammered home, because you still have some hammerheads out there that ain't listening. But that's all right, because they're going to be caught up in the fray of destruction. They're going to be caught up in the fray of the destruction of the Most High on high. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So it says, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is what? Persecuted, and none hindereth. So they're being persecuted, and there's no one to stop it. No one. No one is able to stop the inevitable fall of this devil. Scriptures say we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. There's no amount of balm. There's nothing that you could do, to stop, the destruction that's coming, your decline. So the word for persecutor is maradap. Persecution, it doesn't say much. It comes from the word darap, which means pursue, persecute, follow, chase. Right, persecutors. And how are they chasing the people? By their, constant pushing of their draconian legislation. And it's not just confined to America. It's pretty much pushed all over the world. It says, and none hindered, no one is stopping it. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Why? Because when you go down, that's when the whole world will be at rest. Scriptures say when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. But when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. People are not rejoicing. So just on that alone, you should know who the devil is, who the wicked are. Just on the, just on the way that people are in the condition that they're in right now. It says, yes, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fellow has come up against us. Right. This is dealing with the actual trees, and it's also dealing with the nations. Because the trees are mourning because these devils are taking them down. But the people also are a representation of the trees. And they're going to be rejoicing once this devil goes down. It says in Romans 8 that these people are pretty much waiting for the sons of the Most High to get back into power. I'm just merely paraphrasing it. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming, meaning what? A low state. your demise. The same way you put the world in this poverty state is the same way you're going to be put into a poverty state. Because you see a lot of these small hatters that have these large corporations, they were made rich by first selling on the streets. You hear Apostle Tar bring it out from time to time. There were vendors on the streets before your Macy's and your Bloomingdale's and, you know, Sears and all those different major corporations. They were on the streets selling, and they knew that that was a way for them to get rich. This is why when you come up into the 90s and Jake was out there selling, they were putting hell on Jake out there, taking their stuff, you know, giving him fines, because they know that if they would have left Jake alone out there hustling on the streets, selling, you know, incense oils, rugs, whatever, they would have came up just like these devils came up. So you can't tell me that it's not a conspiracy that these devils have to keep the Israelites down. Every time Jake gets a hustle and finds loopholes to make money, here comes the devil, you know, putting restrictions on shit. It stirreth up the dead for thee. Who are the dead? The dead are the other nations, even the chief ones of the earth, right? Because even these chief nations on the earth that are in bed with you, they're going to turn against you, because they're going to see, you know, they're pretty much seeing you for who you really are, because the scriptures say that shameful spewing shall be put on your glory. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations, meaning all of these rulers that you have been in bed with. But now they're seeing that your interests are not their interests. They just use you to get, you know, to a certain point. And now that they don't need you anymore, they're discarding of you. And if you get fresh, they'll spank you. Look at what they did to Saddam Hussein. Look at what they did to Gaddafi. They will spank you. They will make you look bad. They will pull you out of holes. They will drag you through the mud. They will frong you, or however you say that word, real hard, because you dare bite the hand that feeds you. It hath raised up from the thrones all the kings of the nations. All they that shall speak and say unto thee, art thou become weak as we? How you come down to our level? You know, you used to look down to us. We used to look up to you. Now you're brought down here. Because when slavery comes, I mean, this is speaking about before slavery, but when slavery comes, you're going to be the lowest of the low. You're going to be lower than scum. Art thou become like unto us? Yeah. You're going to be brought down to reality. Thy pomp, which is your pride, is brought down to the grave, meaning it's going to be non-existent. It says, and the noise of thy viols, meaning your lousy music. The worm is spread under thee, the worms cover thee, meaning that your system is corroded, corrupted. It's going to be brought down. Even your physical infrastructure is corroded and corrupted. And your whole system is corroded and corrupted. That's why it says that, you know, the rust of these riches that you have, of the gold and all that, is going to be a witness against you. Because you will be judged. Oh yeah, you escape all type of judgments because you run everything. You're never put on the chopping block. You're never, you know, made to pay. But the Lord is not going to acquit you. The Lord will not at all acquit the wicked. You think you got away in this time, for this time, you know, you were never brought up on charges. You were never brought before a court. You were never judged. You were never, you know, sentenced. You never did a day in jail. But you're going to have a whole 1,000 years to reflect on all of your crimes done against humanity, especially against the Israelites. You know? So how do you like them apples? It says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? So how are you Illuminatis? How are you Illuminatis falling from your heavenly state, from this lofty position that you're in? And this is what Yahushua is coming to do, to take your monkey ass off of the throne. There is no more throne. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. I know a brother posted a couple of verses off of that. But let's go to Isaiah 47:1. And then we'll go back and finish up in Isaiah 14 and then end it there. Isaiah 47:1. Come down and sit, what? In the dust. In confusion. Because you're going to be scratching your head. Once, the Israelites are coming, And once the Lord, give us the power, His will, we be the elect, and we come kicking down your door, waving the 4-4, and not the actual 4-4, the power. And then, bringing your monkey ass, you're going to be looking tattered and torn, and you're going to be in confusion as to where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? We had everything planned out perfectly. What happened to the continuity of government? We had everything set up. But, hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles. It says, so come sit in the dust and confusion, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne. There's no more rulership. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? O daughter of the Chaldeans, because you have the wisest of the wise among you. But even that can't help you. Remember, it says that, how does it go? That none hindereth, meaning none is going to be able to help you. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Inside joke with the tender part. You're not going to be called tender and delicate anymore. You're not going to be fared sumptuously every day like you are now. You're not going to be walking with that stiff upper lip. That looking down your nose at everybody else. Especially you motherfuckers, man. You goddamn demons, you small hat, you motherfuckers, man. Especially you. You Rothschilds, you Rockefellers, you DuPonts, you Gettys, all of you, Van Dween, Oppenheimers, every last one of you, man. The brother said, oh, you're going to hear, don't hit me no more. You are too kind. Inside joke. Take the millstone and grain meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Yeah, because thy nakedness shall be uncovered. And this is what's happening right now. You're being uncovered. Yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance and I will not meet thee as a man. Because when Yahushua comes back this time, man, he ain't playing, man. He ain't coming back like he did 2,000 years ago where you did all this foul shit, Nah, he's coming back with power. Nah, no tender Geno Jennings. Fuck Geno Jennings. Tender, meaning High Priest Ariah said that. Tender! Hey, look, at the end of the day, the Lord is only dealing with his elect. Fuck everybody else that ain't a part of the elect. And that's going to be the sentiment. And this is the spirit that the Lord is putting out there. There's a separation, a line being drawn. A separation between the elect and the ones that are not a part of the elect. Because the Most High is not going to be, oh, well, this guy, he's kind of cool. I kind of like him. He's kind of funny. No. It's either you're going to be on the right side or you're going to be on the wrong side. That's it. No more making excuses. Oh, well, the brother's kind of cool. He might be sincere. No, look, if you ain't part of the elect, you're going to be on the left. If you're a part of the elect, you're going to be on the right. That's it. Bottom line. There ain't going to be no playing around in that day. See, the Most High, he's not double-minded. He's going to come straight and that's it. So let's go back to Isaiah 14. Let's finish out here. Read a couple more verses and close it out. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Right. O day star, you shining light. How art thou cut down to the ground? Meaning you're going to be brought very low. As to right now, you are in a lofty position, in a high position, in a heavenly position. Now you're going to be brought down very low. This ain't talking about the devil, the spiritual demon Satan. This is talking about the physical counterpart, Esau, the so-called white man, especially beginning with their so-called elites, which are called the Illuminati, Alumbrados, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, which did is weaken the nations, and they're the ones that did weaken the nations. When you drop bombs on people, when you inject people, with these different things and mess them up, that is not strengthening them. When you steal people's resources, that is not strengthening the people. When you steal their gold, and when you steal their way of life, when you deprive them of making a living to be able to support themselves and their families, that is not strengthening them. That is weakening them. So there's going to come a point where you're going to have to pay for that. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, which they have. You have your satellites. You have your shuttles, space shuttles. You have your space stations. You have your planes. You have your helicopters, drones, all of that. They have ascended into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. They have done that. We just mentioned some of the things. I will also sit upon the mount of the congregation. And what is the mount of the congregation? The true Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And they're sitting on us. Because our nation is what's keeping this place afloat. Of course, it's Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, but the Israelites are keeping this nation afloat. Even in that movie, The Spook Who Sat Behind the Door, they said if they got rid of all of the Jakes, I believe that was in Chicago, the whole place was shut down. Because Jake is responsible for the infrastructure, to the running of the infrastructure of this place. Transit, just transit alone. Buses, trains, so on and so forth. It would just shut the whole shit down. In the sides of the North America, where we're at. It says, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, which they have through their planes and such. I will be like the Most High. And they're really pushing this right now, being like the Most High, through this technology that they have. They're talking about they don't need the Most High anymore. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, meaning to a low state, to the sides of the pit. Because you're going to go from lofty to lowly. You're going to go from riches to rags. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, right? Because people are going to, right now, and even though now people are looking at you sideways, for a long time you've been looked at as, the beacon of truth, the beacon, everybody looks up to you. But there's going to come a time where they're going to narrowly look down upon you because you made yourself to be the Most High. You put your picture up as being the Heavenly Father, as being His Son, as being the angels. That is blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. But when people realize that you're not who you purported to be, to use a $50 word, they're going to narrowly look upon you and consider thee. Because when you're looking down on somebody, and you're examining, you're considering them like, what? This mother right here? It says, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Basically, this piece of shit right here. Because the veil is going to be pulled off. Your skirt is going to be lifted. And it's going to be found out that you are the devil that the Bible speaks of, and that you are the weakest of all nations. This is why you exploit everybody. and that you are the basest of all men. This is why you have that history of being a caveman, the lowest form of human ever on the planet. No one has that history but you. That's why they don't even make movies like that anymore. That's why when you try to look up the history on cavemen, they don't really give you dates when these things were happening. They'll tell you billions of years ago. Bullshit. The earth is only about 13,000 years old. How in the fuck you gonna have, where the fuck you get 13 billion from? Or however billion. That made the world as a wilderness. Look at the world in this condition. Fish are dying off. You have islands of plastic in the waters, pollution. Fish rather jump out of the water on land and die than to live in that polluted water. Let alone the air, the foods of the people, the minds of the people, all the way down to the clothing on our back. Terrible. And destroyed the cities thereof that opened not the house of the prisoners. Right, because you're not telling the people the truth. A lot of people are caught up in the prison of their mind because they don't know who they are. But the Lord opened up our minds and let us out that prison. This is why Yahweh Shai said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, everyone in his own house. Because after the nations, suffer their captivity, they're going to go back to their lands and live among themselves, govern among themselves, but they'll still be tributary to us. But they won't have it as bad as they once did. But the one that's going to have it the worst are you Edomites. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain. If somebody gets killed, no, you don't see somebody say, you know what, this guy got shot up. There's like 20 bullet holes. There's all kind of blood on it. You know what, I'm going to pass this down to his son. When his son gets of age, he'll be able to wear this. No, you throwing that shit out, burning it or whatever. Thrust through with the sword. So you're going to be looked at in that fashion. Like, get the fuck away from me. That go down to the stones of the pit as a carcass trodden under feet. Just like you see roadkill on the side of the road. Because all of you are going to be rounded up after 1,000 years of captivity, pursuant to Obadiah, the 18th verse. And then you're going to be set ablaze. There's going to be a great Edomite conflagration. That's going to be the true bonfire or good fire. Fire burn. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. You will never ever have the esteem that you have now. Even though it's waning, but you fooled the world, but now you're being revealed, and you will never have that again. You're going to be always known as the, base men or men of no name that you really are. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers. And this right here, this verse alone proves reincarnation. Because why are their children being prepared for slaughter for the iniquity of their fathers? Because they are the children coming back that did that back in when they were their fathers. Back during slavery, back during when Christopher Columbus first came to the soils of this side of the world, the Western Hemisphere, and destroyed our people, our heritage, our land, our women, our children, our men. You got a lot to pay for, man. And the scriptures say, according to the substance shall the restitution be. And you have the whole world, so you got a lot to pay for, a lot to give back, man. You're going to be giving a whole lot of yourself, Esau. That they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. Because you'll never, ever again, there will not be a plot of land ever anywhere that will have you ruling again. So Elder Lahab, I hate to inform you that you are wrong on that. Never ever again will these devils ever rise again, because the next step after slavery is total annihilation, according to the Bible. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will cut off from Babylon the name and remnant, the son and nephew, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Everything's going to be cut off. All of your, would be, genealogy, for lack of better words. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord, the Yahweh Bashem Yahushai saying it. I will also make it a possession for the bittern, because this place will be inhabited by wild beasts and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. That besom of destruction is that big wall of fire that's going to come and totally annihilate and destroy America, Babylon the Great. And good riddance. Good riddance. So with that, I pray that you brothers and you few sisters have been edified. Until the next time I say, Shalom.